This book really changed my life. It's crazy how this book made me just like open my eyes to a lot of things. Hey y'all, this is the book I'm doing a review on today called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. Woohoo! Resistance greatest hits. So for me as an actor, there's been so much resistance in my life to have breakthrough and to really like become the actor I've always dreamed of being. And I've had to push myself through countless amounts of fear and just things that would come at me that would make me want to just quit altogether. I love what I do so much that the love has pushed me forward into becoming a professional and then moving deeper into my career and sharing what I love with other people through filmmaking and teaching, etc., etc. What are the characteristics of resistance? Sometimes they're invisible to us, but they're these big boulders in our life that keep us from doing our art or creating the symphony that we're supposed to create, or writing a poem, or creating a movie, or becoming the owner of a dance company in a small town. There's so much resistance that most people choose to go through, they choose like a career with an easier path. And I always tell people that unless you have the burning desire to become an actor, don't become an actor because it's really, really tough. I do feel like that the arts and being a creative person is a calling, and I feel like he really taps into that. He talks a lot about the spiritual nature of having this calling to the arts, which I really love at the end. He talks about the ego and the self and how basically that the ego wants to keep us in a small space, like not creating anything because there's just too much fear around the rejection of what it might feel like. The self, which I like to call my spirit woman, is alive and she really wants to do all these great things. She wants to become a great actor. She wants to write great scripts and leave a legacy of art behind her. There's like this part of you that just holds that part of you back because you're afraid of what the rejection might feel like. And rejection is actually a huge issue for most creatives. And I've dealt with it a ton in my life, and I've learned how to deal with it and kind of use it as fuel instead of feeling like, wow, I keep getting rejected and rejected and rejected, and what do they think of me? It's really tough as an actor because you're constantly evolving too as an actor as you age, and the characters you play are different and unique based on your age. And so you're kind of having to let go of certain ideas of who you thought you were as you get older. And I hope to do what I do until I'm 80. And maybe by then I'll be this like great actor when I'm 80 years old, and I'll have busted through all the resistance, and I will have arrived at some sense of like knowledge of just being a great actor. They say that painters and people who draw, they get better as they get older because their perspective changes on everything. I feel like that's the same way it is for acting. This book has really changed my perspective on what I was up against. I didn't know as a creative that I was I'd chosen an uphill battle. So I'd say this book, if you are creative and you're struggling to just make your first movie or create your first book or finish your first painting and put it out and sell it at the farmer's market, or maybe you really want to start crocheting. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's like you want to sell things on Etsy. I don't know. Whatever it is that you feel like would fulfill that creative dream, this is the book for you to read to kind of deal with those inner creative battles, those things that keep rising up to block you. Sometimes it's so crazy. These things that he explains, it's like he's saying that the resistance comes at weird angles. It comes from like crazy spots, like, oh, I just don't have the money. Like money holds us back, right? We think that money is an issue. Like, oh, if I had a ton of money, I would write a great symphony. Or we think like, oh, if I had, a rich grandmother was paying for everything, of course I would make a movie. But really, that shouldn't be what holds us back. Oh, another thing he talks about is like, what makes you a pro? Like, what creates this transition from amateur to pro? And one of the lines that I love, it's like, there is no mystery to turning pro. It's a decision brought about by an act of will. We make up our mind to view ourselves as pros, and we do it. Simple as that. And it's really your perspective. There's no mystery to it. You start acting like a pro, you rehearse like a pro, you study like a pro, you do all the things pros do, and all of a sudden you get your first job. It just happens that way. I actually, when I was in LA, produced my first show. It really made me feel like a pro because we charged tickets, and I remember feeling like, we did it. We rented a theater, we we got like 16 actors together. We all wrote our own personal monologues and our own stories. We invited all the casting directors and all of our friends to come watch, and we charged to come watch it. And people came, and it was like the first time I ever felt like, wow, I did it. But it took a lot of oomph from inside. I was waiting tables, working 2 jobs. I was sacrificing a lot about where I was living, what I was doing. I was studying so much, and I was putting all my money towards my studies. But the moment that I took the money for the first ticket and I was able to pay for the theater and pay all the actors a little bit of money for what they had done, I was like, girl, you're a pro. And everything just changed inside of me. I just rose up, and I felt like I had done something special, and I had hired other actors, and I had created my own thing. And so for me, creating my own content is what actually changed me from an amateur to a pro. It made me feel this sense of like, I did it. So I recommend this book for anyone who is in that uphill battle, trying to figure out what they want to do as their passion. And really, oh man, there's so much to glean from this. I'll leave you with one last thing. It talks a lot about the spiritual journey. He talks about like having a meditative, spiritual part of your practice of really not leaning on yourself to create good content, but tapping into the spiritual side of life. And I do think that there's a higher power, and like that we are, and he really talks about God a lot in the book. He talks about God, and he phrases it in a lot of different ways. But basically that we're not actually alone in the journey of creation. It's actually something of the divine that you're tapping into. And so when you're actually not in charge of what's being downloaded, it's really something from the divine that's being downloaded to you. You don't have to have the pressure of being great. You're actually just channeling it from heaven. You're actually just bringing it down because you were listening. He says in here about how maybe the symphonies that were written like to Bach and Beethoven and all these people, maybe they were the ones that just tuned in to the truth that was coming down from heaven. Those symphonies were trying to come down, and many people were trying to make music, but they weren't really listening with their spirit. And so when you open up to that spiritual side, who knows what will be downloaded? So it's like just being in tune with what's bigger than you can have a huge effect on your work. And he says that's really the ticket to creating great work, is really tapping into that divineness that's within us and tapping into what's above and kind of channeling God in our work. Anyway, this book will change your life. I love this book. For any creative out there, I recommend it and hope that you enjoy it too. Thanks.